Tingles with light. Hi, it's really good to see you again. How have you been? That's good to hear. And how are you kids doing? Oh yeah, no, I've been good. I'm really excited for this meeting today. I've been working for a little while to be able to distribute these particular fabrics. So I am so excited that we have finally got our deals through. So I really, really think you'll like them. Yeah, so have you heard of Hoffman Batiks before? Yeah, I figured in your quilting circles you had to have heard of them. Yeah, it can be a little bit tough to get your hands on them, so I'm so excited, and I think all of your shoppers will absolutely love them. They are beautiful. Yeah. So today I just have a little bit of a range. We do have access to the full range, which is just for, today I'll be showing you watercolor colors. There's over 600 fabrics in the watercolor range. So I'll just be showing you a few. I have some kind of neutral brown type colors, a little bit of green, and some kind of blackish grays, and a couple random colors in there. But we do have access to the full range, so obviously we don't have any purples, reds, oranges, nothing super orange, but I'll be able to get any of those for you. Could do the full range, and then obviously have full access to all the patterned fabrics as well. So with Hoffman Batiks, they are all made in Bali itself, and so the fabrics are made there kind of with the traditional Balinese style, but all of the patterns are created by Hoffman, which is a US company, and so they have very unique and beautiful colors. So I'm gonna just grab our first little stack here. I'll show you the full stack. You can see these are just beautiful, beautiful colors. And they're very varied. So you can get things in lots of hues, lots of different levels of saturation, and they are great for especially quilters who are a little bit on the artistic side. They can be gorgeous. I've gone to so many quilt shows and you see these lovely Hoffman Batiks featured in beautiful art quilts. But they can be gorgeous in all sorts of combinations. Lots of classic patterns can be used with these lovely fabrics to really just add a little bit of texture. So set this down and we'll go through what we have one by one. So first thing I recommend is just give that fabric a little bit of a feel. You can feel the quality of it. Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? These are all very, very high quality fabrics. They are very durable. It's 100% cotton. And they are beautiful. All of these watercolors are designed to have, they're kind of a textured plain color. So So when you look at it, you can see it kind of has a predominant shade, but there are lighter and darker sections within the fabric itself. This is the pearl color. So, as I know you haven't carried it before, I figured you probably wouldn't want to start with the full range. So just let me know and we'll note down any of the colors that you definitely want to stock in your first order. And I'll also send you over a card with the full range so you can pick out the colors. But I just wanted to pull out a little sample so you could see them in the flesh, kind of these bigger pieces. You can see a little bit of a darker spot right there. So this is a lovely pearl color. It's very light. It's a bit of a lighter shade. It has almost a little bit of a peachy tone in there. It's quite beautiful. And this is our next fabric. You can see it's kind of in the same family, a little bit darker. And this is the latte color. You can see the darker sections almost have a little bit of a coffee hint. You can kind of see it, maybe why it's called latte. And it's a beautiful, gorgeous color. It's got all this variegated pattern throughout. And this type of pattern is quite common for the watercolor Batiks, where you have kind of these little dotted sections, kind of a little wavy, maybe little splashes. But it's not the only pattern that we will see. You'll see we have slightly different patterns. And you'll see you have these ones where it's a little less dotted, a little more smooth transition. And this can be really good, especially for your artists, for if they need something with a little bit more smooth texture, or they have alternative textured sections. And that can be nice as well, just for any sort of typical quilts, if they want to choose out a particular section to use at a particular spot. Here we have our next one, getting a bit darker and a bit more contrast. So you can see the darkers are much darker and the lights are just a little bit darker. So just a lot more contrast there. You have these very wavy patterns throughout. Kind of look like comets and waves and dots, lovely swirls and whirls all throughout. So this is, that was pearl. These lighter ones are the ones I have the hardest time with. And we had pearl, latte. Oh, this is parchment. So this is the parchment color. So here's one that's a little bit of a different type of pattern. This is scones. And you can see it kind of has this mixture of these tans and peach type colors. A little bit more variation on the saturation, not just light to dark. And it's a very smooth transition. Reminds me kind of scoops of sherbet, maybe. Just smoothing its way over, as opposed to having those really high contrast areas. It's a little more smoothed out. So that's our scones color. A little bit more on the sandy side as far as tone goes is this lovely dune color. And this can be really nice in desert type settings or just anything kind of a Southwest inspired quilt with sages or those sort of colors. And it has a little bit of this dotted type structure. Not a lot of contrast. You have little bits to add a bit of texture, but not huge amounts of contrast. It's a little bit more yellow than peach, like the other ones. Here we have our funnel cake. And this is our funnel cake option. You can see it's a little bit more of a brown tan, not that peachy type color. Has some really dark brown spots. And this is again a little bit of that dotted and swirly type pattern. Yeah. And again, all of these fabrics are just that really strong, durable construction. They do not fray at the edges. You can see these edges are very high quality. It's very beautiful fabric. Now this is one of my favorite ones. It's so pretty. This is the amber color. And it reminds me, always kind of makes me think of a regal lion. These kind of lighter shades that remind me of a lion's body, and then the mane of a mighty lion. But it is the amber color. It's gorgeous. It's kind of a mixture between the really dotted kinds that we've seen, because you have a little bit of dotting, and then that smoothness of scones. But it has lots of variation within it. It's almost a patterned plain, because it just has so much variation within it. But you can really use it either way, depending on what you pair it with. So, I love this fabric. And here we have the mocha fabric. This is a nice, lovely, getting to be a bit richer and deeper as far as the colors go. This has a bit of a light dotting, a bit of waviness through, and there is a bit of contrast. So obviously our light colors are getting a bit darker as we get into the darker shades. But you can see here you have some nice darks to really set it off. It really adds a nice bit of texture in the fabric. I personally, in my own quilts, I can't use just plains anymore. I always have to have a bit of texture in there. Really adds a bit of interest, I think. And these ones, as opposed to your more patterned fabrics, because they are these batik style, they have a very organic feel. It doesn't feel very regimented like if you have a fabric that's just a series of dots or a series of very patterned flowers. Because of the flow, it's really, really gorgeous. This we have is the rattan. And this is a nice color. It's kind of a pinky brown. And it can go really nicely if you pair it with something like the pearl. You can see those two go together quite nicely. And then you could throw like a sage green in there, and that's a really nice color pattern. But this one is very nice. It's a little bit more muted, so it can almost sit as a neutral, kind of playing down to be a tannish type color. Or if you have really desaturated other colors, it'll tend more towards a pinky red type color. So it's a very versatile color. I do really like ones like that. A bit of a different slant on that type of color is this cedar that we have. This, you can see, has a lot more contrast. You have these very, very light bits with these very dark patterns going through. And I just love these swirly waves, Just so gorgeous. And it's just a nice cedar color. I do tend to like a little bit more saturation myself, though. That's why this is cider. You can see it's this gorgeous kind of orangey color almost. Very dotted, lots of contrast, and very bright color. But it's also something that's a bit muted, so you can match this with a really bright orange, kind of in a similar shade, and this could be kind of your pastel color, even though it still has a high amount of saturation. Very gorgeous. But I just love this one. It just makes me think of, I think cider's a really good name for it, just a nice, delicious glass of cider. But you can just see these wavy colors, that kind of flowing pattern. I just love how organic it feels. Here we have a beautiful, almost pinky color, but it's a bit peachy. And this is the Gossamer. This one has a low amount of contrast. Still does have texture in there, but less contrast, which is good for sending it more to the background, not making it stand out as much, which can be beneficial for certain applications. So, now this color, this fabric is so lovely. This is the chai tea color. It's just so rich. It has a nice amount of contrast. You have some really light, almost yellowish areas, contrasted by these deep, rich brown areas. And then you even have some really dark browns in there. And it is just so stunning. I am in love with this fabric. Oh yeah, no, I thought you would definitely need it in your first order. Here we have the redwood fabric, and you can see we're getting a bit darker in tone. This still has a really nice amount of contrast, and you're getting really dotted. As it gets a bit darker, you'll see generally there is a bit more pattern going through, because they can really use that darkness as they go through. And so you have some really dark areas combined with some lighter areas. The overall impact just makes it so beautiful. I love that one. A different shade we have is this clove. It's kind of a light brown color. And then you can see just why it would be called clove, because it has that gorgeous deep clove color. And this is great color. It's good for, you can use it as a dark, or we do have some even darker shades that it can even be a middle tone, depending on how dark a quilter would want to go with their quilt. But the brown can contrast really nicely with some beautiful purples, and then you can use the pearl almost as a white. Yeah. And it can be very, very beautiful. This fabric I just love on its own. This is the brownie fabric, and it looks exactly like a brownie to me. I just feel like I could just eat it right up. Every time I see it, it just makes me think I need to go home and make some brownies so that I can just gobble some up. So I think it's a very appropriate color. Has those darkish but also the reddish shades of perfect brownies. So that is the brownie color. And then here is the darkest one that I have. It's this Woodstock color. It's almost a blackish shade, but it's definitely brown. We'll see some more blackish ones next. But this is the Woodstock, very deep shade. It can be used in place of a black if you want to have a more kind of old style looking quilt or a 70s style where you don't want to use blacks. Then the black and the pearl can be very nice for your black and white type colors. And it can be a really nice effect. So that's all those colors. Here we have my little slightly brighter stack, but I do have some neutrals here at the top as well. So we have some nice grays here that we'll go through at the top, just a couple little orangey yellows, a couple blues, and then some nice greens. So I'll just show you through that stack now. So with our neutrals, you can see, sorry, my hair ends up getting everywhere. So this is our silver color. This is actually a different, this is the only one I've brought with me. It's not actually a Hoffman Batik, but I really like how it goes in with these other colors, so I always present it together. This is a Timeless Treasures silver, so it's quite light, but it goes nicely, I think, with the rest of this family. So, because a lot of people do like to have, especially when they're ordering, have a kind of a range of grays. And with the Hoffman Batiks, the main issue I do have is finding a really light gray, and so that one I think does go quite nicely. This next one we have is a fog color. You can see it's a bit darker, reminds you of just a nice foggy morning, and it's got a kind of bubbly appearance. Reminds me of a window pane with maybe some little droplets of water on it. So it's a very beautiful fabric, nice gray. Next we have this River Rocks. So getting a bit darker, and you can just imagine looking into a river and seeing little rocks in there covered by the water, and this grayish color is quite a good match for what that would be. Getting a bit darker, we have this stone color. Reminds me a bit of almost a slate color. Lots of nice contrast here. We have some very light colors and some almost inky black colors in there. Very dynamic fabric. It's beautiful, beautiful. And then these are the two blacks that we have. This is the black light. With this one you can still see that variation and pattern on there. Whereas with the raven, it looks pretty much like a solid. It is still made in the batik method, made the exact same way. But because it has so much dye in there, it does appear like a plain black. So a lot of people might find that they prefer the black light, but for certain situations you maybe need something with complete blackness, and that's where the raven would be the optimum choice. Go through our 4 little different colors. This is the Tutti Frutti fabric. And you can see it's a bright, happy, beautiful fabric. I love this shade of just happy, yellowy orange. I can't quite tell if it's a yellow or orange. It's that perfect shade. And this is so gorgeous. This really stands out in any sort of quilt. It actually goes quite nicely with this next fabric I have, which is the cayenne. You can see those two together make a lovely combination. This cayenne is a lovely orangey fabric with a hint of redness in there. Nice bit of contrast. You have these really deep red sections and these very kind of pastel orange sections as well. So beautiful. I love bright fabrics. The two blues I have, they're quite close together, so I'll show them to you next to each other so you can see the contrast in them. So we have this Montego. These are both kind of sky blue colors. This Montego reminds me of a beautiful kind of spring morning. Maybe going out to a kite festival, that type of early dawn sky, just a beautiful blue. Whereas this Cabana is a little bit more, I think, a summer sky, just deep blue. I mean, it's not, it probably could be a bit darker if you wanted a really deep sky blue, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And it's called Cabana because you think of sitting in a cabana on the beach and that lovely, lovely sky. So I only brought a couple of those colors with me. And then I have some lovely greens to show you. These greens are so beautiful. And there's a few different types of patterns we have. The lightest I have with me today is this lovely pesto color. You can see we almost have these almost whitish sections. They're still green tinted, but really, really light. Kind of sandwiched within these darker sections. The overall effect is a very lightish shade, but with a bit of contrast and definitely a lot of texture. Next I have is this Kelly green, which is wonderful in so many applications. You can be used in so many different things. It's a kind of a nice grassy green color. Got a lot of nice texture, but it's not over textured either. You have some nice smooth areas through here, kind of punctuated with texture. But you have some really nice little dark areas, but then some lighter areas mixed in as well. Beautiful, nice, textured, solid. Now, you know how much I love saturations. This gecko is so bright and so beautiful. I'm thinking myself I'll need to make a quilt with just all the brightest colors. So beautiful. This gecko is stunning. It really stands out. It can dominate because it's so bright. So I do recommend it in a little bit smaller quantities, but it is gorgeous. We have this rainforest fabric. You can see it has a slightly more blue tinge to it. So it's still a green, it's not an aqua, but kind of heading a little bit more that direction. And just kind of reminiscent of that rainforest type color. You can see it has gorgeous contrast, some very dark areas, some lighter areas, some smooth areas, but then also some lovely little dotted areas as well. It's a really beautiful color. And gorgeous for foliage. Because it just really, the pattern goes nicely to hint towards foliage. This is our spinach color. The spinach and cypress, that's the next one I'll show you. They have kind of a similar pattern, which is this very, very contrasting. So you have very light areas and then very dark areas, combined with some very smooth areas and then very dotted areas. But the spinach, you can see, is a little bit less saturated. You'll see the cypress, so beautifully saturated. But this is good if you need something a little more muted to fit in with the color palette that you're using. But this is a beautiful fabric. This is again kind of reminiscent of the amber or the chai tea, where it's almost a patterned plain on its own because it has so much variation within the fabric itself. So it's just something to keep in mind with the application you're using it for. And this is the cypress, which I just love that saturation. Just so beautiful. Just gorgeous, and it just pops right off the fabric. And all of these just feel so lovely in the hands. Just love them to death. I'm just so happy that I've finally got my hands on some to be able to distribute to my lovely buyers. So, and I'm really excited to see. I know you have some amazing quilters who shop at your stores. I'm just excited to see what they might do with some of these fabrics. So I just have two more. So this is the pine color that I have. And you can see this doesn't have the same variation as the spinach and cypress, but obviously that can be good for certain applications. And you can even go, if you're wanting a kind of black and white quilt, so people who do quilts that are only within the same color and only different, lightness and darkness, then these type of fabrics can be so good because you don't have to just sit in a white and gray palette. You can take that into a brown palette, or as you can see, we could go into a green palette and really explore that color but just with the different values and different lightness and darkness. So this is a lovely dark pine color. And the last one I have, this is to me kind of the darker version of the rainforest. So there's a little bit of that blue in there. And this is the Dublin, or Dublin, Ireland. And you can see, I'll actually grab that to show you. You can see kind of how those two almost complement each other. This one is a lot darker, and they're not quite the same shade of blue, but they could definitely work together. And it would depend on, obviously, what sections you would use. But these are just so gorgeous. So that is all the fabrics I have to show you today. Did you want to make your order now, or did you want to wait until I send you that card over so you can see the full range? Yeah, okay. No, I'll send that to your email. I'll send you an email with the full range and the order form, and then I will express over the card with the full range. That'll probably take 2 days, so expect that in a couple days. But I will note down, because I think you wanted the amber. Is that right? I don't remember exactly. Okay, that's alright. Won't worry about it, because you're probably going to want a lot more things, so yeah. And the other thing to remember is you can keep that card in the store. So if you have quilters come in and you're not carrying the particular color that they want, you can do it by special order. But I would have to, we do sell it obviously in bolts to the store. Yeah. Okay? But I'm telling you, these fabrics, they definitely will sell. Okay. Well, it's been great to meet with you again. And I'll be in touch with you by email just to follow up, see what you want to order, okay? Yes, and I did get that other fabric in. I will send that over as well, because I know you did have a special order. So I'll send, that pattern, the Moda, I'll make sure that gets over as well. I have it in the warehouse. I just need to get it sent over to you. So I'll send that with the card. Okay. Well, talk to you soon.